You all ready? Oh, well, it says here I've got it, so it's on. Oh, well, welcome you all to this meeting. Thank you. And start it with a karakia. Kia hora te marino, ki whakapaka punamo, te moana, he harihe mai tato, I te rangi nei, atua mai tato e tato kata. So, yeah, and good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Joni. I see you've just come on board too.
Yes, good morning.
So, okay, I open the morning with any apologies. We have none. Any visitors? We have none of those either. I've got a cat here somewhere running around, but declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations today? We are going to be talking about the land development in Tekapo. No conflicts. No, that's good. Bereavements. So we've had a number of bereavements, and I'm sorry I struggle sometimes to keep up with the bereavements, but we've the ones I have got is Graham Parcell passed away on the 26th of November. He was a member of the Royal New Zealand Air Force, loving husband of Gwyneth for 57 years. Mary Pawsley passed away at home, surrounded by her family, love wife of John, 55 years. Les Blacklock died suddenly at home, age 66. Super husband of Wendy for 45 years. And Les was a long-standing contributor to the Mackenzie Community Board and chair of the Fairley Community Board. I've added in Ross McRobbie, just special mention. Ross was the Waitaki District Councillor. He passed away at the age of 70. He worked very closely with MDC, and he was party to a number of initiatives which we had going with Waitaki, and he's a big loss to the Waitaki District. I've also had Wilfred Belcher, passed away on the 20th of January, loving husband of Beverly, dad of Bob, Leanne and Janie. He was ex-engineer of Mackenzie District Council. Stephanie Helmrich passed away on January the 10th, love wife of John, love mother of Marcus, Nancy, Leanne and Heather, and just died suddenly on Saturday. Was Quinton Mitchell, loved husband of Anne, father of David. So is there any others that I've missed? No, I struggle sometimes with the Twizel ones, but hopefully we get most of them one way or the other. So if we just, I won't say stand, or just bow our heads and remember these people for a minute. Thanks. Okay, thank you. So the first report is Amir's report. So can I have someone just raise your hands the best way, move that we receive this report, please. So thanks, Emily and James. So I said I'd do a verbal update on anything that you may want me to, but first of all, I'm open to questions. Well, I will do a wee verbal update. One is of the Takiwa approach, and this was to do with the three waters. The Takiwa is the Ngātahu, whom are very upset that we've rejected, well, basically the Canterbury mayors have rejected, and quite a few of the other mayors in the country, the Entity D approach. And at present, there's some serious talks going on with them. It's not that we're rejecting the Ngātahu. We're just rejecting the entity D and the type of entity that it's going to be, and still questioning whether it's the best way to go for Three Waters. So I'm sure those discussions will work through. We have another meeting this week. We had our meeting with the Runanga and Tegapo. It was a Waianga 4, which Charisma, who was the lead agency for the Runanga, took us through, and it was very, very successful. Well, I thought it was. The Runanga remained very engaged. They're there in a strong voice, but they're also very supportive and really do want to see us progress our destination Mackenzie to Manahuna Kiuta. So, yeah, I thought that was quite good. Did you want to add anything to that, Angela?
No, I think we had a really successful Wananga, Graham. Just to add, I think we made progress. We got the voice and manifestation document done. So I think that, and that's with the Runanga for approval. So that's just the only bit I'd add, Graham.
Yeah, no, it was very good.
Don't know if you want to talk about the plenary meeting.
So, and that was the other one, which is the action group for democracy, if you like. As far as the challenge on the Three Waters, this Whanganui and Timaru have mounted the challenge along with Waimakariri. We're not actually part of the legal side of it, so we're not coughing up money for this challenge. The challenge is around the advertising, which was poorly done, and an indictment on local governance. This was the slimy water and frogs jumping out of the water when you went to have a shower. We felt that that wasn't right. But the bigger challenge is around the community-owned assets and the fact that the government will commandeer them for another community entity or whatever. That can't happen without consultation with the communities that spent the money. So that's basically where that's got. There's another meeting this week. What they've done is they've now, some of the mayors have not been in favour of their councils being party to this. So they've now gone out to all the individual elected members. And so any elected member can now be part of this group if they just want to sign in. So at the moment it's representing over 1 million people. There's something like 25 councils signed up, and I have sent you as councillors the minutes of the last meeting, so you have seen that. So happy to take any questions, and I see Anne's got her hand up.
Good morning, Mayor Graham. Just two things. When you say mayors, some mayors are not supportive, is that mayors within the existing group, or is that outside of the existing group?
Not sure what you entirely mean by that. It's just mayors across the country. Some of the mayors have said we're not going to be party to this, and so have not brought it to their councils. Okay. It's now gone to the stage there where people, if they want to, even though their council has not supported it, can support it themselves.
Okay. Okay. And my other comment in regards to your activity update is I note that there have been 7 meetings of Te Manahuna Kiuta in the last 7 weeks. So just noting that that's taking a lot of resource from our staff and council, and hopefully that there's going to be some real good gains and benefits come out of it.
Yes, I think we're on a better track now. What did make quite a few meetings was that we had a wee bit of, shall I say, I won't say dissension, I'll say questioning within DOC. And so both Angela and I and Jimmy, who's come on board, Jimmy Sygrove, Seagrove, is it? Something like that. So we met with, it was Claire Spence, which is a new director on DOC, and she came in asking a lot of questions. Some of them were very good, but it meant we had to take our whole program back to bring her forward again, if you like. And yeah, it questioned our principles, I suppose, a wee way, our vision and principles. And yeah, so it did take a bit of understanding. I don't know that it did any harm, but it got a wee bit frustrating at times. So Angela, you want to say something? Thank you.
I do agree with Anne. It's taken a lot of resource. The doc did raise some concerns around the project management. I think they were valid concerns, and I think we needed to address them. We are on a better path with Jimmy Seagrove being brought on from Rationale, working with us and with Becca. I believe we're streamlining the process going forward. We've got a new detailed timeline come out, and I'm feeling a lot more comfortable around where we're going in terms of the scenarios. We've got some detailed scenarios that have been developed, and I'm hoping that once we get to actually putting pen to paper on the draft destination management plan, we'll have some exciting projects that drop out the back of that. But I think the trick has really been this hiatus period and keeping the momentum going and dealing with some of the concerns that have been raised, which I think have been dealt with quite effectively. We now just need to keep the project moving.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, I concur with Angela over that. I was getting pretty concerned that we were going to get to its destination, which is one huge journey, and still have some money in the bank. But Angela's done a tremendous amount of work in the background. Beckers have stepped up, I believe, and they're honouring the deal, and we are going to complete the project. And I think after our 2-day workshop last week, I've come away a lot more confident that we are going to get somewhere. Thank you for that. Any other questions as to my report? And good morning, Fiona. I see you're all masked up, so you must be in the office. So I'll just touch base on the, sorry.
Right.
Just
I have a question on your report.
Yes.
The delegations to committee under emergency, what would be the trigger that would move us towards setting up that emergency committee?
Probably if I drop dead tomorrow.
Well, we already have a plan for that. But it would surely have to be a little more than that, because it's quite a significant move to delegate to the whole committee.
So the thinking is around it that if Angela and I were out, who would take control?
Okay, and what would be the quorum for that committee? Because if we're talking about lockdown and Zoom meetings and so forth, how would we manage a quorum?
Angela?
James, we would only really put that committee into play.
We're losing you a wee bit, Angela.
Oh, sorry, I think I was on mute. James, we would only put that committee into play if it was truly a widespread emergency in the community. We had, so we couldn't call a quorum for council, and we really needed to have an emergency committee in place to make decisions. It would be really a dire situation. I don't think we would be calling that committee unless it was absolutely necessary. A lot of other councils have put that committee into play just in case there was a dire emergency, and we've only put it there so that there would be continuity of decision making. But that's in my report, which is in the next one, and we can amend that when we get to that if you're not happy with the committee.
No, I was just intrigued about how many people in the same room would have to constitute a quorum for that committee.
Happy to amend that, James. It's it was just a suggestion, but we can. It's the next item on the agenda. So if you
Sure.
want to, so we can leave it till then, and we can discuss that at the next item on the agenda, if that's okay.
Yep, fine.
So no other questions for me. I was just going to touch on the rowing. Both Angela and I are in close contact with Mark Weatherall, New Zealand Rowing, and I think we've got a meeting this afternoon. The understanding is that if Omicron takes off and becomes right throughout the community, rowing won't be going ahead. The South Island Rowing the other week was very well organised, very well done. Credit to them. Demonstrated that they're quite capable of running these regattas at our world-class rowing event at Ruataniwha. So very keen for it to go ahead, but understand complications around COVID may put a damper on it. And Angela and I are in close contact with New Zealand Rowing on that one. So, okay, no further questions. Move on to Chief Executive's report, 5.2. Can someone move this? Thanks, Anne and Stuart. And James, can you go on mute when you're not on? Thanks. Okay, Angela.
Just to kick off the report and give a really short synopsis, it's been a really busy first month. The finance team's been under the pump with both the preparation of the annual report and also the consolidating of all the numbers for the annual plan. That's been interspersed with Te Manahuna Kiuta key workshops and preparation for those workshops. And in between all of that, we've managed to fit in some leadership development on strategy. So really, all in all, a really busy month. We've had COVID thrown at us with the emergence of Omicron. And as you're aware, we've brought in the roster system for the teams to ensure we can, there's continuity of service provision. My report does mention the committee that James had spoken about. I've put a proposed terms of reference and delegated decision making and a proposed quorum. I'm open for that to be challenged and amended in any shape or form. As I said earlier, it's really for continuity of decision making should a dire emergency come about, and we have wide absenteeism amongst the councillors and amongst the leadership team. But it is a committee that other councils have put in place. Happy for the powers to be considered and also the quorum to be considered. I also did put a recommendation in the report of there were 3 recommendations. One was just to note the report for information. The other one was to consider the proposed terms of reference and delegated powers for the establishment of the temporary emergency committee. That's not calling it, but it's just allowing it to be established so that if we need to call it, it could be called and set up. And then I also did want to point out there's a lot of legal reforms going on, one of which is the trifecta modernising the emergency management framework. There's a really short deadline for these submissions on the 11th of February. We've been that busy, we haven't had time to actually draft the submission, but we will circulate a copy of that. And I'm asking for authority to be delegated to the Mayor and Chief Executive to finalise the contents of that so we can get that off by the 11th of February, which is, I think, the end of this week. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Thanks, Angela. I understand under the trifecta, the emergency management powers that the mayors have is going to change a wee bit. And in a national emergency, I dare say the the National Controller can make the decisions to declare a civil emergency, not necessarily the Mayor.
There's quite a few amendments around inclusion of iwi. There's also talk around, you know, the split of powers between the community versus centralised civil defence. I've still got to work through the detail of all of that, and I will circulate a submission around all of that. But we haven't unfortunately had the time to actually put pen to paper.
Thanks, Angela. Do councillors need a wee bit of an update on just the office and its running? Team B, is it, or Team 2 is in the office at the moment? I don't know there's an A and a B team, is it? It's just how it fell.
It's just how it fell. There's no A in team Delta and Omicron. And we've just got two teams just so that we can keep, you know, service provision going. We're trying not to burst the bubbles. And Twizel seems to be in a bubble of its own as well. So we are trying to make sure that we can keep things going. It's working well, and we're able to working well with all of our teams, so it seems to be working quite well.
It's good. Any questions on that front, yes, Anne?
Hi, Angela. A comprehensive report. I've got just a few questions around clarification. Under your working group on representation, governance, accountability of the new waters, you mentioned the bill is expected to go to a select committee next year. Now, is that at 2023, or is it, do you mean by the end of this year?
You're on mute, Angela.
Sorry, those dates were quoted from what I'd actually picked up from the DIA website. So those are the days that we've actually put in there. The working group will, I think it's 28th of February, and the bill will go through as far as I'm aware, and I stand to be corrected by next year. But David, you might want to correct me if I'm wrong. David Adamson.
Sorry, Angela, what was the question? I was busy typing.
The working group will report back to the Minister by the 28th of February, which enables the ministers to consider the recommendations from the working group process before the bill is introduced. From what I understand, it's only going to be introduced next year. I think it's 2023. I don't think it's this year, Anne.
Moving down through your report, I see those submissions are coming at us thick and fast. So short time frames, as always, it seems to be from central government, which is unfortunate. Sorry, in regards to the regional leadership group, the connectivity, Angela, how often do you meet with this group? And remind me of the membership, please.
The membership is quite wide ranging. I don't attend it, but the Mayor attended. It used to be open to the CEs and the mayors. They send out minutes every week, and I think Graham attends that meeting every Thursday at 8:30. But it's quite a wide-reaching group, and it encompasses all the councils. There's the police commissioner. There's a whole host of people on that committee. I can send you the actual membership, Anne, but I don't have that available right at the moment.
So if I can just add in there, also, it's basically just catching up on what's happening around the region in face of COVID taking off and how we're managing it. So moving on your report, Angela, to people and culture.
In terms of people and culture, we've made some progress in that we did recruit some staff towards the end of last year. One was the emergency management officer who starts with us on the 14th of February. That's Joe Rush. We did appoint a comms advisor. She subsequently declined because of the unavailability of accommodation in Twizel. We're still continuing to see if we can work with her to secure her. We've got 3 adverts out at the moment, one for the corporate planner, one for the principal policy planner, and one for the financial accountant. We've got CVs in for the financial accountant. Not sure about the corporate planner, but that's in the process of being of receiving the CVs, and then shortly after there we'll be shortlisting and seeing if there's anybody suitable for interview. It remains really challenging to secure staff, but we're continuing to work through this and to make sure that we do try to secure some good staff in the process. Good work on policy development. There's been some policy development that's been happening, and Alexis has been quite involved in the development of the vaccination policy, as well as the contractor policy that we're rolling out shortly. So also quite a busy space in terms of HR and recruitment.
So if I can just back up there, obviously I'm a wee bit concerned over the fact that this person couldn't find accommodation in Twizel. What did we do to sort of try and find accommodation?
We did work with them. I think it was their own personal circumstances. They just found the accommodation quite unaffordable. We are looking at some alternatives in terms of flexible working arrangements. So we will go back and see if we can progress it. Also, it's a tight market, as Chris pointed out this morning. We were discussing it with the holiday season. After the holiday season, you do see accommodation being released. So we will go back to the candidate and see if there's any movement. But if there isn't, we will look at see if there's any way we could accommodate flexible working arrangements. But if we don't manage to secure that, we'll have to go out to market again.
Thank you. Any other questions on, obviously Alexis is not here today.
No, unfortunately, she's at a tangi. She had 2 bereavements in her family, so.
Okay, thank you. Anne?
Angela, going back to your important local meetings, I see on the 18th of January, you had a meeting in regards to the shared library. Just questioning, hopefully that shared library is still on track.
I have submitted a motivation through to Kate Staniford for why we believe wearing, vaccination mandates are important in the shared library in Twizel. It is. She has to get his approval from the Ministry of Education, and she was going back to the Ministry of Education to actually find out what the requirements were for vaccination. Certain requirements in the MOE environment are deemed to be human rights. So it has to be a joint sort of agreement between council and the school, partly because we fund it, but we don't employ the librarian. They employ the librarian and they manage the library. So it has to be a joint agreement. I haven't heard anything back from Kate at this moment.
Thanks, Angela. David?
Graham, just going back to the question that Angela asked me, I've just had a look at the Free Waters reforms. They're talking about 2 bills coming in. One's called the Water Services Entities Bill, and the second one called the Water Services Entities Implementation Bill. Now, I'm not sure of the timetable, because the timetable on their website shows that the first one was going to enter Parliament at the end of 2021, and it obviously hasn't done that. So the whole program's been delayed. They're saying the second bill is going to enter Parliament early July, August this year. But again, they haven't updated that program either. So I'll see whether I can dig something out and get an updated program that we can circulate around councillors. So the information on their website hasn't been updated with the current sort of delays that they've got on their program.
Thanks, David. I wasn't sure of the exact timing because I know there's been some movement.
So just on that too, David, the Working Party had to march, I think, to state some concerns that they were working through. But the actual work, this is on Three Waters, but the working party had been given a very, very narrow terms of reference. So they were going to struggle to be able to make much change.
And I know they've met a couple of times with the minister and a few other people, DIA, late last year. I'm not sure they've done anything this year, but I haven't seen the outcome. I was talking to Jim Palmer, not Jim Palmer, the new chief executive of Waimakariri. Yep. And he was having a meeting, but he hasn't reported back the outcome of that meeting because he attended it on behalf of the group. So I'll let you know as soon as I can dig some more information up.
Okay, that man was Jim Harland.
Jim Harland, yep.
Yep, sorry, I said Jim Holland, but I was on mute.
Okay, thank you. So we're just moving down. It's good to see that staff seem to have stabilised. Mind you, they're all, it's been over Christmas and New Year, so normally they stay in their jobs during that time.
Yep, I just think we've got to keep on with the work we're doing with the leadership development, the strategy and the culture, and just continue to, we've also been providing EAP services as well, and there's regular comms going up throughout this whole COVID remote working. So it's just really.
You keep, okay, we lost you again, Angela, but.
Oh, sorry. I just sort of said, Graham, that it's just, we just continue with the work that we're doing with Mary, you know, on culture. We've got EAP services and we're doing regular comms with our team.
Okay, thank you. So on to service.
So, Graham,
Sorry, Stuart.
Just on the staff thing, do we actually have a plan of the level of staff we require?
Well, that was around 40, 45 FTEs. We just haven't been able to fill them. So we've now dropped down to 38, is it?
We're on about 40 at the moment. Just looking at the latest report. So we've gone up because of the latest recruitment. Head count of 42 and FTE count is obviously lower than that. In terms of looking at the staffing we need, we are looking through the annual plan process, Stuart, just to make sure that we still have to go back and just true up all the vacant positions. We also have to look at what we can afford, and we have to make sure that we can make the best use of people that we have in place as well. So I think there is still a little bit of movement still to be done to actually work out what we need as a wider team, and that will happen through the annual plan process. But we are the critical roles we have focused on, and we have targeted those being the comms, the corporate planner, the financial accountant, the principal policy planner, and the planners that we recruited in December. So those were the critical ones, and we'll continue. The next critical one that we need to focus on is the community services and facilities officer, and make sure that we actually take that forward as well. So we are focusing on the critical staff.
Thanks, Angela. Any other questions onto that? No, Anne, sorry.
Just a comment following on from what Angela has said. In her conclusion, she notes that the workload continues to be onerous, and I'm hopeful, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the workshops on Thursday, Friday, hopefully will go some way to sort of help with that onerous workload.
So yes, thanks, Ian. It's about direction, and that's why Angela and I had a discussion last week over that, and it's important that they go ahead to set that direction. Just moving on a wee bit. Sorry, Angela. I just on to service requests, and I see community services. What looks like roading, and building seem to be the ones that seem to get all the requests.
I think that probably speaks for itself. Roading remains an important aspect of our business, and building control as well. So those are two areas that do get a lot. As I'm sure, and it is a bit cyclical as well, just depending on what's happening.
So I think the important thing is too that we're servicing these requests well. So thank you to all the staff. I see on the LIMS report, we're sort of headed on quite a downward trend. We're normally at this time of the year, it's going up. So where that graph's going to go, I'm not too sure, but it's headed down at the moment.
I think that's just a reflection of.
You keep going on to mute.
I'm not sure. I keep on getting muted. So I think it's a factor of the impact of COVID in some of the tourism areas and the lack of subdivision activity. Aaron might want to comment a little bit further on that. He's probably a little bit closer to that.
Okay, Aaron, have you got any comments?
Thank you, Mayor Graham. I think it's just reflective that a lot of the subdivisions are being sold off plans at the moment rather than completing the sections before sale. So those subdivisions don't usually get released to the market for about May once construction's finished. So they tend to sell them in the period now, but limbs don't come in for them because the titles don't.
Okay, so the titles aren't coming through because the subdivisions aren't finished, basically.
Correct. Title doesn't get issued until the physical works are completed. So they sell off the plans and then do the physical works with completion usually around May, which aligns with council's sealing deadline for roads. So then they go and do their paperwork, and titles tend to be issued probably 12 months after they actually went on sale. So to come in for a limb now would just give you a limb for the parent title rather than each individual allotment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to Angela's report?
Graham, just further to that, at the Engineering and Community Services Committee, you'll get an opportunity to talk to Tina, but she's saying that building consents are almost double what we had last year. So there's certainly a lot of building activity out there. So that's quite encouraging.
Okay, thanks, David. Any other questions to Angela before we move off her report? I'd just like to thank you, Angela. Excellent report. Thank you. Okay. So the next report will be financial. And again, I want to congratulate you, Sandy, on a lot of figures you've put together for us. Thank you. So will someone move we receive the financial report, please? Anne and Matt, thank you. Sandy, do you want to take us through it? It's a new format. It's pretty simple. You've got your performance, we've got the variance, and we've got a balance at the end. So
through the Mayor, we've included both October and November. The October report, probably they're very, very similar. There is a slight increase, of course, with the November one. What we're finding though is, and you will receive next week, the December report. We're trying to get back on track so that you're getting them more regularly. That's why you ended up with both of them on this account. But what we are seeing now that the LTP has been adopted, there is a lot more expenditure occurring, and we're starting to track backwards, back up towards where we want to be, which is great. I'm happy to take any questions on the reports.
So, Sandy, I see our money's disappearing, you might say. So when do we implement some borrowing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are hoping we're actually putting together some reports on our CapEx projections, and we're looking probably at going out to the LGFA around March to get some funding and taking up their borrowings. But at this stage, we're using the cash that we have because, of course, the interest rates aren't that great. So we might as well use that rather than, start taking our debt.
No, it makes good sense. So, and that was the other concern, is that we've got a lot of CapEx that hasn't been spent at the moment.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are starting to spend that. We are starting to get some of these projects on track now that the LTP has been adopted. So certainly David would fill you in a little bit more detail on that, but we are starting to see that we're getting those physical works, we're getting design concepts, etc., going through, and the costs are starting to come in, which is great.
And one other question has been, because we've been down in numbers of staff, we've been up in consultancy and that type of expenditure. It's always sort of a bit of a balancing line whether you've got that staff on or whether you've employed specialist services, but it invariably costs more, usually with consultancy. So are we way over the cost of employment with consultancy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are up on our consultancy costs compared to what our savings are within our personnel costs, but we are starting to see that drop back. We do have costs though that we've incurred, and that will be in relation to a lot of that, like the outstanding LTP, for the fact that that was delayed. So a lot of those costs, which normally you would associate in that previous financial year, have come into this year. We're going to probably have a similar scenario with the annual report, because we are still using consultants on our annual report just to get it through. The consultants had started, our contractors had started doing the annual report for us because it was prior to sort of my time, and also the fact that we didn't have a financial accountant. So we are still utilising those. So there will be some costs there, and in some of the other areas as well, we are still using consultants due to that. The lack of staff. So at the end of the financial year, I think we will still have an unfavourable variance in that area, but it won't be what it is at the moment. So yeah, we are pulling it back.
Well done, thank you. I go to Anne, thank you.
Morning, Sandy. I noticed that the grant funding for Destination Mackenzie to Manahuna Kiuta hasn't been received. Is there concern over this, or is it expected to come in a lump sum, or how does it work?
Oh, through the Mayor, sorry, apologies for this one. This was one that I found. We found this the other day. We had actually received all the funding. We have received it last financial year. It was put in as a prepayment. That prepayment, unfortunately, hasn't been journaled back. So we will have that in there for the December report.
So, and I'll probably go to Angela too, just for an update on this one, because Angela's been dealing closely with the budget with Becca. Angela?
So we received a grant of 710. I think we've only drawn down about 500 of the grant, so we can still draw down a little bit more. But we have to meet certain milestones in terms of deliverable to draw down more. And the next milestone is to have the first draft of the destination management plan done. So unfortunately, I think we're pretty much at the limit of what we can draw down from the PGF funding until we get the first draft of the DMP out the door. And also, just to go back to the consultants and personnel expenditure, I think this is where Stuart's question comes into play, where we've actually got to decide, go back to what we had actually put in the LTP, true up what we actually need, and we may find that there are some positions that we don't fill. And that might potentially offset some of the over expenditure on consultants. But we do need to make sure that we secure some of the key resources in the finance team to be able to make sure we meet our statutory deadlines. sorry, and just not rely on consultants
No.
in that space.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. Any other questions, James?
Yes, through the chair. Has the delay in the delivery of the LTP had an impact on the rates revenue? Are people meeting their rates payments as planned?
Through the Mayor, yes, they are. We had our instalment 2, of course, go out and be due on the 30th of December. We did put penalties on last week on instalment 2, and they were in line with what they were the previous year. So we are finding that people, although we've had that delay of the LTP, people have still met their accounts on time and payments. And we have had minimal, my understanding from the rates officers is we've had minimal requests to go on to some sort of time payment, pretty much the same as what we've had the previous year. So we're not seeing any great changes because of that.
Great,
Thanks, Sandy. And may I also comment on that? I think Chris did an excellent job in getting the message out there why we were late. And I think largely our ratepayers have understood it and met the payments on time, which is great. Stuart? Stuart, you might have to go off mute.
Yeah, thank you. Got the technology sorted. Yeah, I'm real concerned about the capital expenditure as well. I'm just wondering how street lighting, because a lot of ratepayers are really looking forward to it. Where are we with that? Because it seems to have stalled. And the other thing too, I notice we seem to be running about 19 or 20 vehicles, which equates to about 2.5 people per vehicle. Do we actually need a fleet of vehicles this size? That, with our climate control policies and stuff like this, and the latest email out about fuel consumption, etc., is a wee bit of a concern.
Through the Mayor, Angela will answer these 2 questions for you.
Yeah, thanks, Sandy. Angela?
So Leanne's been looking at the fleet, and we have proposed to sell some vehicles. She's in the process of disposing. I think there's 3 or 4 that are due to be disposed, so and to be sold, and to rationalise the fleet. So that answers Stuart's the second question. Can you just repeat the first question, Stuart, because I couldn't remember that?
I might just add a wee bit too on that first question. Was Leanne said to me that there's quite a time lag in getting hold of these vehicles, and I know there was an extra vehicle, EV vehicle or hybrid vehicle that came on board that was offered to us, and she sort of grabbed that at the time. It's not over and above. It was going to be replaced this year, but she hasn't been able to get the vehicles sold. So I think there's 3 to go. Yeah, sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, no, well, the question regarding capital expenditure and getting that underway, and especially perhaps the street lighting, because we stalled, and we seem to still be in the stall situation. There's a lot of interest out there about getting these new LED lights out there. So do you know where we are with that?
I might let David answer that question if that's okay.
We've completely finished the LEDs for the street lights, so that the street lights are finished. The ones that we have to do are the bollards that are around all the walkways and the places where we only have bollards. Now, the issue that we've got is that we are talking with NZTA to try and get their subsidy through, and we're still trying to get their 85% subsidy through if we possibly can. Unfortunately, they've been a little bit slack on getting our answer. So I know that Scott had a meeting with them at the end of last year. No, it was this year, actually. It was last couple of weeks ago. And we've asked them the question because I don't want to, well, if I could pick up 85% of it, as opposed to 51% of it through them, I'd like to try and do that. But I'm struggling to get an answer from them. due to a number of things, part of it being some of the issues that have arisen from our last year's claim. So we're trying to resolve that. We know what we do. We've done all the design, and we can certainly afford it even without their 85%, but I'd rather try and get the 85% if I could.
So that 85% was worth something like a couple of $100,000 to us, David.
Correct, and we've picked that as much as we could last year and a little bit more, and that's part of the issue that we've got. And I'm hoping I can transfer that to the work that we're committing today, so that we're working our way through it. There's probably a difference of 75,000 of the work remaining. So 75,000 is 1% rate. So we're trying to just see whether we can get that.
So it is unfortunate because some of the circumstances that came into play were out of our control. So it'd be good that Wakatakahi actually stumped up.
I agree, and I think, however, you know, as we know, in the likes of Tekapo, for example, there's quite a few failed lights on the bollards, and I think we need to just get it done and commit ourselves in the next month or so. So in actual fact, we get it finished this financial year, irrelevant of where NZTA. But I am trying to push them so that we can hopefully utilise some of the money that we've already got.
Thanks, David. I'll go to Matt.
Thanks, through you, the Mayor. For David, yes, funding aside on the streetlight bollard issue, where are we at with procurement of the hardware? I feel that we've been talking about this for quite a while, and I think there's been talks with the installer, and we were led to believe that the gear was in a container, which then got delayed, and then it was supposed to be here and it wasn't here, and then it was here. So is it just the funding the issue, or is the procurement of the...
My understanding is that we haven't ordered it. We know what we've got to order, and we know where we can get it, and it can be ordered immediately, but we haven't ordered it because we then, if we order it, it's very difficult to get post construction cost reimbursed through NZTA. So that's what I'm saying, Matt. If I don't get an answer from NZTA in the next month, we'll put that order through anyway.
And so, David, have you got any idea on lead time? Because if I remember rightly, these are parts which come from far away and are quite difficult to source. Is that not correct?
Look, I'm sorry, I'd have to go and talk to Scott about lead time, but I can get back to you on that and find out what the lead time is.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be disappointing if we went through another winter with so many failed bollard lights around Tekapo, that's for sure.
And I agree. Yeah, so we'll make sure that we get it, like I say, finished this financial year.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Angela?
Graham, we may need to go back to the previous report and just pass the resolutions because we didn't complete that.
What were the resolutions? Sorry.
It was to delegate the trifecta submission to the Mayor.
Oh, that's right.
And also the emergency committee, but I thought maybe you want to finish the finance and then we can just go back on that one.
Okay, thanks. We will finish off finance. So any other questions to Sandy? Very good. We haven't really looked at the October month. I've only really concentrated on the November month, and it's already out of date. We're now February. But
It's not quite out of date.
Oh, righto.
Mayor Graham, but certainly it will be next week when you get the December report, yes.
Yeah. No, it's very good. I really do like the format, and thank you. And I'm sure I'm saying that on behalf of all my other councillors as well.
Yeah,
Very much. If I could just say, I know the finance team's been really working hard. Sandy didn't have much of a break this entire weekend. She worked most of the weekend. So they've really been under the pump with both annual report, normal routine financial reports, and also annual plan. So I'd just like to thank Sandy, especially for all her hard work.
Yeah, I do that. The only thing, and it's probably David, roading seems to be lagging well behind. Is that just Is it just timing? Or have we sort of lightened up a bit on road works?
We couldn't go through, Graham, with the capital program because of until we got the LTP. So we're working our way through that with Filton Hogan at this point. They are just making sure they've got enough resources now to do so that we catch up. But we had a governance meeting last week and they have shown that they've got the resources to catch up with exactly what we're doing. So we will catch up on that. But we just couldn't commit ourselves to anything over and above the annual plan until we got the LTP through.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? No. So, okay, I need to go backwards now.
Mr. Mayor, just one thing.
Yeah.
That sort of shows to us, though, that the committees aren't working that well because we're in the dark regarding a lot of the stuff because capital expenditures behind, etc. And if we get asked out in public arena, we really don't know. And the time distance between meetings, etc., it's just too great. And like David said, they've had a governance meeting to catch up, blah, blah, blah. But that we don't know any of that. So we're sort of fumbling around in the dark a wee bit at times, I feel.
So that's why we asked the question. And yeah, we don't really understand, I suppose, what Stuart's saying, David, until we see the accounts, whether the money's being spent or not.
That's correct. And you've got to appreciate that you haven't had a committee meeting since you passed the LTP. So we've got a committee meeting coming up in 10 days' time, which you'll have a full roading and Three Waters report at the engineering committee. It's just, I think, through you, Your Worship, just a timing issue. So I'm just about to sign off the full reports that go up to that committee.
Okay, thank you. Angela?
Just to also say, I think we've had a bit of a hiatus of meetings over December and January. Hopefully we'll get back on track. And also we've been in backlog with the financial reports. So hopefully as things come more on track and we get more regular time-use reports, these things will become a little bit more transparent and we can discuss them more openly.
Okay, thank you. So just backing up everyone onto our last report from Angela with the resolutions around the emergency committee. I didn't actually see these resolutions on the agenda. So you're on mute, Angela.
Sorry, Graham, there were 3 recommendations on the report. I'm just going to my report.
Oh, okay.
One was
So I see notes of progress on the strategic projects. Are those the ones?
Yep.
The council approves the proposed terms of reference and delegated powers of an establishment of a temporary emergency committee, COVID-19. And council notes the submission date for the trifecta, modernising the emergency management framework as 11th of February and delegates authority to the Mayor, Chief Executive to finalise the contents of the submission. Well, I'm quite happy to take that on board with Angela, and we would circulate it all to you before we made the submission. Just back to the temporary emergency committee, Angela felt that this is something a lot of other councils were doing and thought that perhaps in the event of a major emergency, we had the powers to do that. But bear in mind, the operative word around it is temporary. So can I have anyone that would, James, sorry.
Yeah, yes, this temporary committee, it's quite a significant shift in power and it just seems a wee bit vague and ill-defined to me at the moment. Like I asked before, what would trigger the setting up of this committee, and would it have to be a statement from the mayor to do that? And what would signal the time to dismantle this committee? Like, we need to have some of these sort of terms defined. It's quite a significant shift, and I think we need to be careful about it.
So James, I take your point, and can we ask for a wee bit of time and maybe another wee bit of a paper brought to council around this temporary committee? I don't think we're just going to drop over tomorrow, Angela.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
I appreciate it. It is urgent. I mean, the wave of Omicron is coming, and we need to be ready. But I'm just a wee bit concerned. We've got to make sure it's legal to start with, and maybe we can follow on from other councils that have already done this and adopt some of their rules. But that might save some time.
So Angela, do you want to speak on that, whether it's legal or not?
Through the chair, I have looked at what other councils have done, and this is largely having looked through the internet and how other emergency councils of committees have been set up. This is how they've set them up. It is a legal committee. We did something similar when we had the earthquake. We're opening it to all elected councillors, but we're limiting the quorum in case there was absenteeism. It's really hard to put a trigger on it, James, for the simple reason, we don't know how widespread this is going to become. We don't know how sick people are going to get. We don't know the level of absenteeism that's going to occur. My preference would be that we only called this a real emergency if we had a real issue that we needed to make an urgent decision on. And we would disestablish it as soon as we could, because you don't want them you don't want this committee making decisions around everything. You really want it to pertain around COVID-19 and any decisions around that and supporting welfare. It wouldn't, but it would be a case if there was a widespread absenteeism amongst the councillors and we couldn't get a quorum, we would need this committee. So this is just a mechanism to allow the mayor to call this should this eventuate. It's really difficult to put a trigger on it. Do you put 10 cases in the community? Is it 20 cases in the community? Hard to put a number because we don't know what's going to eventuate.
I wasn't thinking so much of a number, but just a statement from the mayor. It would be the mayor's decision as to whether this committee would be established or not. And again, it should be the mayor's decision as to when it's done its work and needs to be disbanded.
Yep, and I would sort of say that it would be either called by the mayor or his alternate if the mayor was sick. That would be the only reason why you would establish it. It wouldn't be at the CEO's discretion.
Okay, Anne, have you got a couple of comments?
I'm just questioning quorum of 2. How did you land on quorum of 2? I wonder whether a quorum of 2, if you set up this committee, would be seen as enough.
I'm open to changing that if you would like to. I think our current quorum is 4, so I've tried to sort of go halfway between that and what the normal quorum is.
So this is if we all get struck down, and who's going to run the business?
I appreciate that, but I do wonder whether 3 is a better number than 2.
I'm happy to change that.
So James?
The point of the quorum is that they have to be in the same room together, and under COVID restrictions, that could be a concern. I mean, it's an opportunity to spread it anyway. So, I'm happy to keep it to as low as possible, so long as it's legal under the terms of the videoing council meetings.
Yep, I did allow for this to be a remote committee, so it is allowed for in the terms of reference.
So Anne, have your hand still up, or are you going to take it down? Or talk? No, she's not going to do either. So I think maybe we need to see a wee bit more around this, Angela.
Okay,
So I think maybe bring it back to us.
okay.
And hopefully nothing, a lot of emergency will happen in the meantime. So the other resolution is around the submissions. So is anyone happy to move that one and progress the strategic projects? So there's 3 submissions there. I'm happy to move that we notes progress on the strategic projects, and yeah, I'm also like that submission that the proposed terms of reference and delegated powers be brought for a temporary committee be brought back to council at the first opportunity, and that council on submissions, the chief executive and the mayor work together on this one.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
You're happy with that? So move, Stuart, seconded, James. All in favour, raise your hand. Yep, 100%. Great. Thank you. Okay, so that's finance done. So what have we got now? 6.3, which is South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce report. Someone
6.2.
6.2, sorry, adoption of strategic routes.
Yeah, page 45.
So will someone move we receive the report? Emily and James, thanks. Okay, so we've got a report from, well, David's authorised it. Christine, I don't know that Christine is here to speak to it, but I'm sure David will.
You, Mr. Chair, you, as part of your dangerous buildings under the Building Act, earthquake-prone buildings, you need to actually identify your strategic routes. And the reason for this being the buildings that face those routes need to have a better level or a quicker resolution of any earthquake-prone damage. And the background you'll remember is where facades fell off buildings and smashed onto cars and streets and things like that. Now, you've already passed this document, but you have to do it periodically. And so we're bringing up the same document that you've already authorised for reauthorisation, because your policy has to be done every 5 years. So basically, you'll see a map that gives you your strategic routes with a little bit of the detail in them. I don't think there's anything untoward in all of this. I don't think it's got any major significance. You don't have a lot of multi-storey brick buildings, for example, but you will have buildings that do front with brick, single-storey brick facades, which will mean that they'll have to be updated within the next 15 years or strengthened anyway. So I'm happy to take any questions that the council has.
Thanks, David. Any questions, James?
Yeah, just wonder if medical centres are regarded as emergency services, particularly the Twizel one, as it has a helipad and the like, and whether they should be marked on these maps as well.
It's not the purpose of this map to show those facilities that have to be up at a higher level. That's a different process. As you will know, we've got level 1 to level 4 regarding structural strength, and medical centres need to be in, look, I'm sorry, I'd have to look at the code of whether they should be level 3 or level 4. Normal buildings like office buildings should be level 2.
They should be level 4.
Sorry?
They are level 4.
Okay, and so basically there is a different document. This document is to show earthquake-prone buildings that face onto these strategic routes need to be strengthened in a time frame quicker than what normal buildings need to be.
Dan?
David, can we just take it that all owners of buildings in the areas identified as earthquake prone buildings are well aware and have been formally notified of this?
Look, Anne, I'd have to go back and have a look through the files, but I assume that they were notified when you first did your earthquake prone policy, when you originally set this back in 2017, when you had to identify these strategic routes. But look, we will be, I will get Christine to re-notify people to make sure that they're aware of their obligations under this policy. So, yep, quite happy if you'd like to alter the alteration or alter the building recommendation that we notify people that this is likely to affect. Obviously, a lot of the people that are facing those are just in ordinary houses that are away from the main street anyway. It's more likely to be likes of our neighbour here with the you know, the garage and the hotels and things like that, the commercial buildings that are right on the street front.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that everybody who council was aware was going to be impacted was written to last year at the time of the engagement. So a number of individual letters went out, and then the proposal was widely circulated, you know, in the media, on social media, and was open to the public for feedback.
Thank you. I think that's just important that that's noted so that we all understand exactly where we are with regards to information sharing.
So there is quite a bit of work to probably be done in Fairley through the main street. Stuart, did you have something to say?
No, Anne covered it. I was just trying to make sure that everybody knew the situation going forward.
So as Chris said, I well remember all the letters going out. I don't know that we ever got any feedback. It was more like just informing them that their buildings were on the strategic priority route. Did we have any feedback, Chris?
No, we only received one response that wasn't in favour of making any changes. But I think, as David said, this is a routine thing. Most of those building owners are well aware of their obligations, and it's something of a formality.
So do we have a mover? Or Anne, do you want to say something else? Yeah, okay, moved Emily. Anne, or did you want to say something, Anne? Sorry.
To move, Mayor Graham.
Pardon? You're moving.
Yes.
Okay, moved Anne, seconded Emily. That the council adopt the strategic routes and priority thoroughfares identification document. All in favour? All in favour? Hands up. Yep, 100% carried. Thanks. Okay, the next document we've got today is South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce report, November and December 2021. Probably just look at the December one. So, but we need someone, we received these documents. Someone move that, thanks. Stuart and Murray, thank you. So, I don't know, Paul, do you want to say anything? There's a couple of things I will say that 50-50 funding to businesses, there's quite a lot of money being put out, 404,000, which is very good, to 155 Mackenzie businesses. 46 businesses have received one-on-one support, and Chamber's been very active in the immigration world and trying to get more immigrants coming to this district. So you want to say anything, Paul?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Graham. Yeah, look, the good news is the highlight is probably the 3-year contract with South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce. That's been a long time coming. We've sort of limped along sort of on a 12-month contractual arrangement. We've now formalised that into a 3-year contract, and I think that's helped cement the really good work that South Canterbury Chamber of Commerce do. The business liaison role is the key contact in that contract, and I think you're starting to see some better results coming through. You'll note there that you won't see a monthly report now, you'll see a quarterly report in line with Christchurch NZ. So happy to answer any other questions you may have about the 2 reports that are in front of you. Noting the next one will be in April.
Any questions to Paul? I do know, talking to businesses, they're very grateful for the support that the Chamber has been giving them. So that's good, not that it's solving their issues. Okay. Next report, 6.4. Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited land swap proposal with Mackenzie District Council. So can we receive the report, please? James and Stuart, thank you. So this report calls for a bit of thinking. And so I'll probably hand over to Fiona if you want to take us through it. Fiona? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I thought it might be useful to start this overview with this is the second time this report has come through to council, and I thought it might be timely to just give a reminder of the outcome of the original report that was a resolution by council in December 2020, and that was that the council considered the offer and declined the offer for the following reasons: that council is awaiting the outcome of a decision from the High Court on a judicial review. Can everyone hear me just with my mask on? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's all good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Under the Resource Management Act in relation to the property on the corner of Aorangi Crescent and Diarc Drive, and 2, that council currently has a moratorium on all land sales, including land swap, and that council informs the Tekapo Community Board of its decision. So here we are with a second swap proposal by Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited. By way of background, the sequence of events that led to that are the purchase of Lot 1A from Mackenzie District Council by the entity Tekapo Lake Resorts Limited. Tekapo Lakes Resort own the land on Aorangi Crescent, and they have consent for 4-star development. The community signalled resistance to the proposed 4-star development, and as a result of that, High Court litigation resulted as to the district planning rules enabling the 4-star hotel development. And the other key point in terms of context is that judicial review decision was released in July 2021, which upheld the decision of council to consent for the development of Aorangi Crescent. The offer, the second offer from Tekapo Sky Holdings, is largely stated that it is inspired by the litigation with council, where Tekapo Sky Holdings were a respondent, and it incurred considerable costs to them. And they maintain that they are not interested in going against the needs and desires of the community. That was supported by the Tekapo Community Board, who wrote to council supporting that land swap in November 2020, and that email was re-forwarded on as a part of, in relation to this second proposal. The director of Tekapo Sky Holdings acknowledges that there is a benefit of the Lakeside Drive site, which is the Mackenzie District Council site that they're wishing to swap with, which provides an advantage to building on their site. although it is eroded by several easements and building restricted areas. I think the important assumption here with this swap is, again, that Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited would expect that current resource consent and all required approvals would be expedited and completed in-house by Mackenzie District Council. That Mackenzie District Council included a provision of an access road off Lakeside Drive, and that services are provided to the boundary at no cost to Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited. This report includes pros and cons in terms of the proposed land swap. And I'm just going to pull out the kind of salient ones as I see it, which, or in my opinion at least, which are, there are obviously economies of scale from horizontal infrastructure that could be achieved by the developer with this proposed swap. And there is a consistent theme from the community in terms of the potential for Aorangi Crescent site to be zoned for community services uses, which would dovetail into the existing community services that are provided there in the form of the hall and the primary school and kindergarten. In terms of the negatives, the values are not current at all on which the assumptions are made for the land swap. The setback of, or the swapping, sorry, of 6,373 square metres of land setback from the lake for 16,000 square metres overlooking the lake undervalues the possible return for the Lakeside Drive land. And there is, I believe, concern that horizontal infrastructure undertaken by Tekapo Lakes Resort Limited and the joint entity Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited is seeking to accumulate and control the majority of the land on the lakefront, or possibly the intention to on-sell. And the two final points here, which is really something that's evolved since the last land swap proposal, is we now have an economic development strategy, and one of the projects that is falling out of that is the need to understand what assets Mackenzie District Council currently have and how they can best be commercialised. This parcel of land would form part of that planning. And there have been verbal approaches to council from developers in relation to that piece of land. And it perhaps raises the question, is there possibly, if we would look to swap it, why would we not look to potentially tender it if that was the intention of council? This report provides for 4 options for council to consider in relation to this land swap. The one that in terms of preferred option is that council responds that we are awaiting the outcome of an asset management review to understand the potential commercialisation potential of our freehold land. And we still have a moratorium on land sales, including land swaps. Any questions?
Thank you, Fiona. I take it that Tekapo Sky Holdings expect a fully consented area for them to start building on the land swap.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That is the intention, both verbally and, yes, in writing.
Okay, throw it open to the floor. Any questions to Fiona? Yes, Matt. Thanks. You're on mute, Matt.
Oh, yes. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I think just a couple of points to make here. I think first I would like to just lay some emphasis on the letter received by the community board back in December originally and later on in the piece now just recently. And that is around the response from the spatial planning exercise. and the overwhelming support for the Aorangi site to be considered as community facilities in the future. I think that's a really important point to note when we're making the consideration around this offer. I think Fiona has written the report very nicely and summarised it very well. And I would suggest that the current proposal in its current form is not favourable to the entire ratepayer base, in that the terms and conditions set out in his land swap, I don't think are equitable and fair for all. However, I do believe there's room there for negotiation, and I think given the community need, the community response in terms of the future use of the Aorangi site, I think we do need to maintain a relationship with Tekapo Sky Limited, and I think at the very least at this stage we should be having both sites valued so that we can move forward in a manner where we actually can compare apples with apples. At this stage, I see there's no evaluation of either site in the report, and that makes it very difficult to actually compare like for like. I did see that there's extra detail been added in this report that we hadn't been made aware of previous, and that is actually that the useful area on Lakeside Drive that he's proposing is actually considerably smaller than the 16,000 square meters that that's initially made apparent to us. And it's around 8,000 square meters by the looks that is actually developable. And so then we're comparing 8,000 square meters of developable land, yes, on lake frontage land, with 6,000 square meters on Aorangi, which brings the, to me, it brings the two sites a little bit closer in terms of value. But I believe that in order to move forward, we need to have the sites valued, and I don't believe we should take the options off the table, whether it be a continuation of the land swap proposal in a reformatted manner, or whether it be a case that we look at potentially purchasing the site outright and then potentially offering the other site for sale. I don't know how we move forward in that respect. But I think we need to come up with some sort of consensus and give a clear indication to both the developer and the community which way we're heading.
Yeah, bear in mind, Matt, that you probably, not directly, but indirectly a wee bit conflicted on this.
Yes.
So I'm happy to hear from some of the other councillors and their thinking. So any other councillors? To be absolutely, yeah, Murray, thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say I thought the summation that Matt gave was pretty good, actually. I think it was pretty balanced in terms of what he was saying. There's no doubt that the land in Aorangi Crescent was identified in the spatial planning, and the council should still look to secure that land if it can in the future, whether that and that's not related to whether it's a land swap or whatever. It could be just an outright purchase. The land swap, I don't think compromises the lot 1 and lot 2 on Lakeside Drive. I think the land swap, to me, from what I'm hearing, is that it is only in relation, it bears an advantage in relation to lot 1A. So because that's where the developer has consent to build on lot 1A at the moment, and albeit did start the excavation works but didn't carry on. So lot 1 and lot 2, I think, are not compromised by any land swap that would go ahead. So I'm not, yeah. So it's it's up to council to decide what the decision is. But I think we still need to keep Aorangi Crescent in the back of our minds.
Thank you. Any other councillors thinking? Oh, Stuart.
Yeah, my thinking on this one is, yeah, we need evaluation. So we know what we're talking about on both lots. Regarding a land swap, no, given the history of the organisation we're dealing with and the terms that he wants, I wouldn't even consider that. What we should be keeping in mind is perhaps a buyback of Aorangi Crescent and still holding on to our lot on Lakeside Drive.
Yeah. Anne?
Two questions, more clarification, please. Matt talks about a second letter to council. The community board letter that is noted is November 2020. Are you suggesting there is a second letter, Matt?
No, Anne, sorry, they resent the same letter in support of the second proposal, having sent it the first time for the original proposal. It's showing the same level of support for the proposal now as was back in 2020 when it was sent originally.
And remind me when that was tabled.
Was that the 25th of November 2020?
Yeah, then.
So you've got a copy of that letter, Anne, on the agenda.
Yeah. No, they haven't come. Okay. Okay. And the second point is two councillors have suggested valuations. Won't that be part of the asset management review? Valuations will be made.
Through you, Your Worship, did you want me to respond to that?
Yes, thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Fiona.
Yes, there will be valuations. However, bearing in mind the decision you perhaps want to make on this, the time frame, that the asset management plans, that won't be happening until the 2023 financial year.
So what I'm reading, Fiona, is that there's zero interest in a swap. But what there is strong interest for council to actually secure that Aorangi Crescent land.
Mm-hmm.
Or have I read it right, or anyone going to object? No. So that's where the thinking is. So why, if we're going to purchase, we need a valuation, but it's probably not going to achieve that much, is it?
Well, you have to, through you, Your Worship, it's bearing in mind that if you're going to go for a valuation, they're going to value it with the resource consent currently in place. And
exactly.
Verbal conversations with the director have indicated his selling price would be around the $4.8 million mark. Of course, you can always instruct a valuation just based on land value and use that as a basis of your negotiation. It's particularly given the situation where the director and council are fully aware of the community intent for that land in terms of community value, which is not for a hotel.
No. Matt?
Yeah, I think I think instructing a valuation based on land only is probably sensible, to be fair, because council have no intent on buying the site and putting a hotel on it. That would certainly make sense from my perspective. And at the end of the day, you know, big picture, whatever the value comes out at and whatever we agree to potentially purchase, if that's the route that we go down, you know, the dollar value in 5 to 10 years time is going to be relatively insignificant compared to the potential damage to the community if a 4-star hotel is built there and is established, and we have all of the infrastructure issues around that, as well as the nuisance factor around our community area. So, you know, I think the direction in which Mayor Graham is suggesting there, we look for outright purchase, is probably a sensible one in the circumstances. I do believe, however, that it's not something that can wait till 2023 to be progressed, and I think we probably need to keep the momentum up in order not to mess around the developer any further.
Matt? Oh, no, sorry. Thanks, Matt. Murray?
Yeah, being an ex-real estate agent, I disagree over the valuation. That land is tourist zone. It would have to be valued as tourist zone. The fact of what we might want to use it for is irrelevant. If it's being valued and has a registered valuation, it's valued under its current planning and resource consents. So that is if we want to buy it for something else, we have to pay for that. We have to pay for its current value, and it's a little bit like the squash club. If you want to move the squash clubs, it doesn't matter whether they play tiddlywinks or bowls. You know, it's you move you do it on what's there at the current time. So it's you know, the value is what it is in terms of its planning rules and resource consents.
So back to Tony's consent to build. Okay, he's got the consent, but he hasn't got the building consent to actually build. So
No.
he still can't build.
That's irrelevant. Like in terms of its market value, it'll be the tourist zone, and the fact that you can put a hotel if you want to on it. And if it goes to market, it's whatever it goes to market as. So if it goes to market and someone buys it and wants to build a hotel on it, they'll pay the market value for it, and we would have to match that.
Any other comments? Yeah, Paul, thank you.
Through the Mayor, just remind everyone listening that the letter that came in from Mr. Toswell made it clear that he considers this an exchange of land or a swap, not a sale. So before you start rushing off to get a valuation, you may want to clarify exactly what you're trying to do, because you could be throwing good money after bad. So he's making it clear that it's an exchange of land or a swap, not a sale. So, and I think there was some discussion, if you were getting a valuation, that it would be at his costs, not ours. But hey, those are things that are all need to be put on the table.
Yeah, I think we need to go back to the original request as to whether we're interested in a swap. So any other comments?
No. Why would you swap with someone that's just going to put it on the market?
We don't have a lot
Angela
of,
has got a
yeah, I see that. We don't have a lot of confidence with this developer. Angela?
I just think we've got to be mindful of the process we went through, you know, in upholding the decision that was made, and that there was money spent on that process. So, you know, that's one point to keep in mind. And I do agree with Murray that if we did do any valuation, it would have to be based on the current zoning as tourist. So I just wanted to make those 2 points. And just say we do need to be mindful of the upheld, that the judicial court upheld the decision in this regard, that, you know, for what we had sort of proposed there. I do understand the community board's wishes, but at this stage, I'm just sort of wondering whether there is any need to proceed with the valuation, just given that we don't really see confidence in the developer, and we sort of believe there's a differential in the valuation, and so it probably isn't an equitable proposal for council.
And we still have a moratorium in place.
And the other thing is too, I suggest for 4.8 million, you could probably buy the sale yards.
Okay, happy to take a resolution if someone wants to move something.
Well,
Right, in terms of that resolution, are we saying then that our resolution is that we're not interested in the land swap, but we are interested in purchasing it outright in Orangi Crescent?
Well, initially, we're saying we're not interested in, well, we're awaiting the outcome of an asset management review to understand the potential commercialisation potential of its freehold land. And currently, we have a moratorium on all land sales, including a land swap.
Yeah, we haven't got a moratorium on buying land, though.
No, and through the mayor, can I just pick up on that point too? I would like to see in the outcome. I support that we don't support the land swap in its current form for all of the outlined above. But however, I would like to see a note in there that it remains on the table for a land purchase one way or another. We wouldn't be giving our due service to the community if we are to sit back and not listen to their requests that they've clearly made. On the whole, that it would be beneficial to the community for this piece of land to remain in community facilities or to be turned.
You would like that we would approach them with an offer to purchase the land after evaluation?
Yes, that's what I would certainly like to be included at the very least, yeah, to keep it moving forward.
But we're not interested in getting values for swaps or anything like it. We're just looking at straight out purchase with this land if possible.
Well, I would certainly support that, but I think, Fiona, you've been dealing directly with the director, and so we need to understand at some point what the feeling is around that item.
So through you, Your Worship, I wonder if really the resolution is a combination of points 1, 2 and 5 on the proposed resolution list, which I believe will meet your point, Matt, Councillor Murphy, around keeping the dialogue open with Mr. Toswell and exploring options in terms of potential purchase of the property.
So we need another resolution. Is Arlene, are you still listening?
Mute. Yes, I'm just going to share my screen with the resolution on it so that we can get the wording we want.
Thanks. Oh, Angela, did you want to say something?
Just to add, Graham, I thought, just in terms of, what we've actually upheld in terms of the decision, I think we've got to be mindful of that. I think there is generally a feeling that it is an inequitable proposal and there is a moratorium. So my view is that we should rather go with the first recommendation, and this is just a recommendation from me, that we decline the offer for the reasons as outlined in A and B. I would suggest that we simply add a C in there, which is that Fiona, we request the property and commercial manager to bring back a further report. I think we need clarity on what the requirements are for any community facilities, and that would need to be scoped. And we would need to, and I think it's a separate report that's got to come back on that. I don't think we can make a decision now as to whether we proceed with evaluation. It's all subject to what we want to develop there, how much it's going to cost. We need to engage a bit more wider with the community. So I would feel more comfortable with the recommendation 3A. And we simply request the staff to do further work on and bring back a further report on this matter to consider community facilities there. I think that would probably be my recommendation.
Okay, and I think that probably encaptures it quite well. Thanks, Angela. So Arlene's just typing in that council requests the property and commercial manager comes back to council with a further report on this matter to consider community facilities on the Orangi Crescent land.
I wouldn't say just the property and commercial. I would say that I would just say request the management team to bring back a report, because I think it's wider than just property and commercial. We may need to consider other factors as well.
Okay. Do we want something that will continue to engage with Tekapo Sky Holdings?
Through you, Your Worship. Sorry, I've got my hand up, but you might not be able to see it.
Yeah, no, sorry.
That's all right. I'm just wondering, just considering all of this, I wonder if would it be worthwhile putting a time frame around that point C, and that perhaps may then signal to Tekapo Sky Holdings Limited that there is a time frame around that, so that it's we are at least being a little bit agile around getting back to the director on any potential, what a potential purchase of that land may look like.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, Fiona. Really good, thanks. I definitely think there should be a time frame.
Yeah, for the next, maybe the next council meeting.
The next council meeting's in 1 month's time, and so you would only have 3 weeks for a report. Would that be long enough?
Through the chair, if I could just add, I think this is going to take a wee bit more time. I would suggest that we at least allow ourselves 3 to 4 months to actually find out what the needs are in the community, engage with the community, scope what we need to do, and then bring back something. I think if we're setting ourselves up to bring a report in a month, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure. I would rather give us till the end of June to bring something back.
Yeah, makes sense, Angela. Anne, you've got your hand up.
I just support the direction Angela is going. I think that makes sense. Around timeframes, I mean, how long have we been waiting for this developer to make it moves on actually doing what it do? So, I don't think we need to be too pressed about timeframes. I think we need to be really constructive and really sensible with this, and I support Angela's direction.
So can we have 6 months? Report back to council in 6 months?
By the end of June?
By the end of June, yeah. No, thanks, Arlene. So what you have in front of, oh, I've lost mine now while she's taking it away.
Sorry, there you go.
So can you all see the resolutions? Mine seems to have gone small now.
Yeah, Graham, I'm happy to move in that direction.
Okay, that council notes, that council considers, declines the offer. Is awaiting the outcome of asset management review to understand the potential commercialisation potential of its freehold land, and current as a moratorium on land sales. And council requests the management come back to council by the end of June with a further report on this matter to consider community facilities on the Orangi Crescent land. It's been moved by Anne. Have I a seconder?
Yeah, just on that, Mr. Mayor, if he comes by the end of June, tough.
Say that again, sorry.
If Mr. Toswell comes back and says, okay, the end of June, you've got no priorities or anything on this, tough, I've sold it. You're not going to get it. Where do we go then? Should we not make ourselves clear that we are interested in buying it rather than land swapping it? So he's actually in that frame of mind. You know, we don't have to concede to what he thinks all the time. We've got our own minds.
I would support Stuart's sentiment there that we possibly should make it clear that we are considering outright purchase.
But we still need a management report come back to us as a council.
Yep, I agree that all needs to be done, but as Stuart was saying, I think an indication to the developer of our thinking around it, I think needs to be clear at this stage, because June is a wee way off.
The resolution does say you're declining the offer.
Yeah, that's the land swap offer, Arlene.
Yes, I can put that in.
That's the only thing we're declining. James?
Doesn't, excuse me, doesn't the paragraph C indicate that that's what we're interested in? If we're looking at considering community facilities on that land, that's a pretty big hint that we would need to purchase that.
Yes, that was my understanding. Jane.
That's the way I read it too, that we were interested.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. I agree that it's a pretty big hint, but perhaps we should be a little bit more bold, make it a bit clearer.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big hint, but he'll assume that, oh yeah, there's council, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't even know what community facilities they need in Tekapo. They're just stalling for another 6 months or 4 months.
well, he's a fine one to talk to us about stalling.
Through the chair, if I could just add, I think we can, I mean, we could say, look, we're declining the land swap offer while we continue to investigate and bring back a report to council on community facilities. We don't have to signal anything more. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what we're saying. And I think, you know, we leave it as that, and I'm sure he can read between the lines.
Murray?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, if he looks at this recording, he'll get a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want anything else changed? The request of management comes back to council. So do we take the end of June out and just leave it open-ended again?
No, you've got to leave a timeline in
We
there.
need a date.
Okay.
Yeah,
We need
by
a
the end of
date,
June.
and it's going to keep going on and on and on.
I think we
Okay.
need to do some work, Graham, on finalising what the community needs are.
Okay, righto. Okay, so Anne's got her hand up. Last, do you want to move it, Anne?
I thought I already had me, Graham.
Okay, so it's been moved by Anne. Have we a seconder? Matt, thank you very much. So all in favour, raise your hand. Aye. Unanimous, carried. Thank you very much. Oh, well, hopefully we can get straight on with that, Fiona, and it gives you some direction.
Yes, thank you. Through your worship, thank you, everyone. It was great to have the discussion and the dialogue. Appreciate the context.
So land swap's off, but we are interested in that land.
Okay.
Thank you.
Roger, thank you.
Okay, so that's order of 6.5 we need to go to now. That's page 72. Order of candidate names on the voting paper. So I'll move we receive the reports. The seconder, Matt, thank you. So Arlene's put this one up. So the report's been received and we're seeking each candidate seeking election will be arranged in random order on the voting documents. This is the way we've normally done it. Arlene, do you want to say a couple of words? Thanks.
There's nothing to add. It's just one of those little things that we need to decide before each election, and previously the random order seems to have worked well. So my recommendation is that we continue with that.
Matt?
I'll move that we use random order.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Emily, thank you. So it's been moved, seconded that each candidate seeking election will be arranged in random order on the voting documents. All in favour? Aye. No, it's carried. Thank you. So the next item is Community Board. Community boards, Twizel Community Board. I have some recommendations from them. That was on their meeting on the 6th of December. There's a few recommendations here that Twizel Board approves the proposed location of the Working Man's Hut in principle. The Working Man's Hut is an old Twizel house or hut, I suppose it is. I believe it's been secured, and ask staff to investigate the location and report back to council. Anne, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to ask Emily, where is the intended location?
I presumed it was down there where somewhere beside the machinery and the rest of the equipment.
No, yeah, hi and thanks. I believe it is going outside the driving range by the golf club, sort of to the left of the entrance into the golf club. There's a couple of trees there, and that was one close to the original site where it was. So they believe that that was where it was. That's why it's, I think there's, David might be able to help me here. I believe we're just looking into the land and whether it can be used for that.
Thank you.
You on board,
Yes,
David?
yeah, that's correct. We had an action point to have a look to make sure that it was appropriate to go there, wasn't any other issues. We just didn't get it done over Christmas, so it'll get reported back to the next community board meeting.
Okay, so that's community board there. They've also granted $500 to Twizel Promotions towards the cost of an information stands. They granted $100 to the Twizel area school towards prize of school prize giving. And that a budget of $10,000 from the Twizel Township budget. Implementation of development plan be allotted for the preparation of a development maintenance plan and budget for the development of man-made hill. So that was the Twizel one, and the Tekapo resolutions. Their first meeting though was to allocate the Genesis funding. They had a total request of, I see, of 27,000. They allocated 13, which was the money available. Lake Tekapo Bright Stars, natural outdoor play space, 4,906. Lake Tekapo School, sand pit and outdoor learning area, 6,560. And Mackenzie Golf Club, water tank installation, 4,637. So that was allocated from the Genesis funding. So that was there was no Feely. So that was the minutes of the community board recommendations. We have the council minutes on December the 14th, 2021. So I'll move that they be confirmed too. Someone second that? Thanks, Matt. All in favour? It's carried. Hello, Sam's woken up. She's come on board. Hi, Sam.
Good morning. Yes, still morning.
So we're going quite well. I don't know. I never saw morning tea or anything on the agenda, Arlene. So are we happy to just carry on? We haven't got a lot left. We're about to go into public excluded.
Yes, Your Worship, I suggest you pass a resolution to go into public excluded, and then I'll stop the recording, and then there's only one matter in public excluded, I believe.
Yeah, I was just checking everyone didn't need a toilet stop. Okay.
I've built in a break, Mayor, between the council meeting and the council workshop afterwards. So once the council meeting's done, there's 15 minutes.
Okay, so right, can I have someone move we go into public excluded, please? And seconder,